Good evening. How's everyone doing? All right. So much growth in this room. I remember last year there was 50, 100 less people, and just to see how many people have now come to this meeting and see the value, I'm really just excited to be here and very humbled as well to be able to have the opportunity to speak in front of all of you. I want to take a quick second and acknowledge everyone who made the choice to be here. I'm sure there's a handful of you who decided, who was on the fence of coming or not and weren't sure, didn't know if they wanted to pay for the plane ticket. Maybe were decided last minute and they were looking at plane tickets and there were $300, $400, maybe $500 to be here, and you still made the choice to come, right? And that decision is going to have a huge impact overall on your year this year and moving forward. So, and I remember being here last year and learning from all the greats in the company, and I can tell you that this meeting was one of the biggest impacts on my results from last year, and I give a lot of tribute to what I sold last year, being here, studying what everyone was giving, all the knowledge, all the nuggets, staying up late, asking a lot of questions, and so I challenge all of you to do that over the next couple days as well. So let's see, is this a clicker here? All right, closing new customers. All right, so this is a good overview. By the end of my message, I have three main focuses that I want you to take away. And this is going to piggyback off what Luke Mills spoke about. Great message, by the way. Those were some awesome nuggets. And so the first one is similar to what Luke shared, which is being able to identify customers clearly with purpose and intent, see the power of psychology and how it affects customers, and understanding how the human brain works, okay? Third thing is work with efficiency, making sure every word that comes out of your mouth gets you closer to the path of an order and serving the customer at their highest needs. I am not Luke Mills, and I do not have the best handouts on the planet, but hopefully this will give you a good structure of what we're going to be going over today, and you'll be able to get some good takeaways. So the first thing you'll see there is understanding the difference between new customers and past customers. And the reason why I put that there is, there's a difference between the two, right? There's a way to approach those customers, whether they're brand new or if they have Cutco already. And being able to, I guess my question for you guys is if you've ever really studied the difference between the two and really understood what are the big trigger points between a new customer and a past customer that helps you get you along the path of them buying Cutco. And I love basketball, so I'll use basketball as an analogy. Like, for those of you that played sports, you always study tape before the next game, right? And you study maybe a specific player that you're going to have to guard, right? And it's the same thing when it comes to closing Cutco customers and past customers. Deanna's going to crush it for past customers, so I'm going to spend all my time here on new customers, but do you fully know your opponent, so to speak, right? And how much more would you sell and better serve your customer if you knew your audience on the deepest level? So there's four big things when it comes to a new customer that you want to really be aware of and really identify. And the other thing you're going to notice is that everything that I have to share with you here for the next 25 minutes or so is going to be more mindset. I'm not going to give you scripts. Luke gave a good plug earlier. Vast Action has some of the best scripts ever. Curtis has some awesome scripts as well. So I'm not going to go through word for word. For me, I feel like where there's a lot of value and where there's a lot of area for opportunity and growth is studying the psychology behind how customers work, how they operate, and being able to understand the process of where you need to take a customer to get them to a place where they see the value and want to pull the trigger on buying Cutco. So the big four things, right? First one's they don't have belief in the product. If they've never heard of Cutco before, they don't have any belief in the product, okay? They're unfamiliar with the price, okay? That's a big one that you're going to have to tackle at some point in the approach, right? Don't know why Cutco. So why should they buy Cutco versus another product? And then the biggest one, in my opinion, is lack of belief in high quality knives. Okay, and this may or may not be a deciding factor. They might have Shun, they might have Henckels or Wusthof, but if they don't, being able to increase their belief in why they should have high quality knives, okay, because that's a big telltale factor if they're gonna end up pulling the trigger or not. And you don't wanna backtrack, right? You don't wanna get to the point where you're asking for the order and they don't see the quality of Cutco yet. They don't see the quality of having good knives. So being able to tackle that in the beginning part of engaging your customer is gonna really make it easier for the second half, okay? And so really your job is to get them to understand these 4 things as quickly as possible. The faster you get them to understand, the faster you can get to the close. And to do this, you have to ask certain questions. You have to make certain statements, right? But before you can fire a bunch of questions at your customer, right, you have to get them interested. You have to pique their interest, like Luke was talking about earlier, okay? Get them interested in Cutco. You know, the one thing that I am such a big fan of is timing. Like, timing is everything, and Luke alluded to this earlier, but when you say something has such a big overall impact on how the customer is gonna respond to that. So I'm gonna just talk about leather cutting for a moment here. Everyone cuts leather, I would hope so. But have you ever like really tried to master the art of leather cutting? And by the way, you know, like there's a lot of different ways to do certain things. This is what works for me and what I feel like helps me the most. But being able to cut leather the right way. So has anyone like cut a piece of leather with a Cutco knife, and for whatever reason that Cutco knife has cut like 1 million pieces of leather, right? And so when you go to have them cut, it like doesn't cut the right way or the way you want them to cut. You want it to cut, right? Or they just don't know how to cut in general, and it's the worst experience ever. You're like, here, try this, and they're like making it look like Cutco can't cut that well, right? And so being able to give instruction and guidance, same like when you're gonna have them use the cheese knife on a potato, is really important, right? Something so simple. But this is really their first experience with Cutco, right? That first 60 seconds, those first 5 minutes, that's gonna set the tone, right? Like guys, are you gonna go, when you go talk to a girl at a bar, you have like 60 seconds to impress her, right? Before it's like all downhill, right? So being able to know what you're gonna say, how you're gonna say it, when you're gonna say it, those all have, you know, a huge like ripple effect, okay? So making sure you do it the right way. So for one, I use like a Wusthof knife that's really good, and it's about a $95 utility knife. So I like to use a higher end one. Everyone has kind of a different strategy there. I use that as a price comparison. So, and the way I do it is, and make sure you get a good piece of leather, right? Some of them just aren't that good or too thin or too thick. So get the right piece of leather. And the instructions I give them is, so Mrs. Jones, I want you to start towards the tip of the blade, and I want you to apply a medium amount of pressure using full strokes back and forth and cut all the way through. And what I'll do is when they're about halfway through the piece of leather, I'll say, go ahead, you can apply more pressure, because I want them to apply more pressure, right? Because when they get to the table knife or the steak knife, it'll just cut through immediately. And that's the reaction you want. So you want them to apply a good amount of pressure, right? So tell them, yeah, you can apply more pressure, don't worry. Go, that's perfect, awesome. Cuts all the way through. Didn't that work really well, Mrs. Jones? That was really good, because keep in mind, I'm using a $95 knife. Isn't that amazing to cut through a piece of leather that easy? You could see how well this would work on, you know, a piece of steak, right? Now here, go ahead, try this table knife. Do the same thing, start at the tip of the blade and use the same amount of pressure. And then they go through and they do one of two things, right? It's like, they're looking at it like, how did it do that? Or they're like, holy, right? You've all had those before? Or what the, like, just blown away. That's the response you want, right? Because that's going to pique their interest significantly. Then you have their attention, right? You need their attention before you go any further. And people, you know, in my opinion, reps don't put enough value and focus on that, right? I've heard people say, hey, do you want to hear the 60-second summary? And they go through like American made, guaranteed, and they go through the warranty. And although those things are super powerful, right? But like Luke said, when you say it, has a huge impact on how they receive it, right? So I'll go through that. I'll say this is a $95 Wusthof knife. It's really high end. I'll have them cut the leather. Then I'll have them use the Cutco table knife. And then it's all about filling the curiosity cup, right? Fill the curiosity cup as high as possible with power statements. Hey, Cutco's been around, or Cutco, we've been around since 1949. Here's what's really exciting about this Josh, this knife. It cut that well. It'll stay that sharp 7 to 10 years before you have to even consider getting it sharpened. All right, so they're already blown away by how sharp it was. Now you're just taking it up a notch. And how high can you stack it, right? It's American made. And if you think that's great, that's not even the best part about Cutco. The best part about Cutco is our warranty, our forever guarantee. Okay? And that's all about the timing at that point, right? So now they're ready to listen, they're ready to be engaged with you, and you share that with them, they're just like blown away by how amazing Cutco is. And just to like drill home really quick the importance of timing, well, actually, I'm going to get to that in a second. So 7 to 10 years, American made, warranty, right? You go through the warranty, and then I say, imagine what it would be like to have a set of Cutco knives in your kitchen for the rest of your life, right? Plant the seed of a set. Imagine what it would be like to have a set of Cutco knives in your kitchen for the rest of your life. So before I go any further, just to plug home this whole timing thing, right? I'm going to use the analogy of being in an accident, right? So an accident, you're driving in the car, you get in an accident, right? What a lot of people, like, things that I think about is if I decided to answer that phone call when I was at my house before I left for the day, right, instead of let it go to voicemail, I wouldn't have gotten in an accident, right? Timing, right? If you decided not to rush through that red light, then 5 minutes later, that one car wouldn't have hit you, right? Timing. So it's really interesting to see how, like, one small decision, just one decision, one pause, could literally make the difference on, if you get in an accident, right? So the same thing applies when you're working with your customers, right? When you say something is everything. How you say something is also everything. If you got one takeaway from my message, it's going to be that, it's not necessarily any, ninja statement that I say to customers, but if you just made a focus and a priority this year in 2017 to look at your script and analyze when you say things and how you say things, that will revolutionize your business and sales at the booth, in my opinion. Okay, so you've gone through, you've cut the leather, American made, warranty. Imagine what it would be like to have a set of Cutco knives in your kitchen for the rest of your life. Okay, identifying the prospect, right? Luke went over that already. But when you're working with new customers, you're going to have two customers, right? You're going to have someone who's familiar with Cutco, friends or family had it, maybe they used to have it, right? Or someone who's completely unfamiliar with Cutco, has never heard about it. And being able to know the difference between the two and what to say at that given point in time. Normally, if someone's like, yeah, I've heard of Cutco before, you want to get as much information from your customer as possible. The more information you have, the more, you'll be able to utilize down the road when you're going through your pitch, okay? So be someone that's a collector of information, okay? And also remember that you have a very short attention span for the customer, okay? And it's important to grasp their interest as quickly as possible. And so that's why I spent some time going through those, the process in which I go through things earlier, because when you give them like 60 seconds of value, they'll give you 5 minutes, right? When you give them 5 minutes of value, they'll give you 10 minutes or 20 minutes, right? And hopefully it doesn't take you longer than that to close because you got other people at the booth. So questions that I ask to learn about my customer or just in general in closing. What kind of knives do you have at home? Super simple question, right? But it's important to ask every single time. And you're going to have one of two, results. They're going to have high quality knives or bad knives. If they have quality knives, it's really important to recognize that they have quality knives. Hey, those are great knives. If Cutco isn't in business, I might even consider buying, Shun or Wusthof or Henkel's. If they have the bad, some crappy knives or they don't know the brand, tell me about it. Like if they're like, oh, these knives suck, tell me about it. Why do they suck, right? Create the pain. Ask them questions so that they can relate to their last experience in the kitchen where the knife fell apart, right? Where the rivet fell apart or where there's rust on the knife, yet you're making sandwiches for your kids with these knives, okay? And the value in being able to have them tell you about it is that you can then bring that full circle at the end of when you're about to close, when they're on the fence, right? If they're on the fence about if they should buy it or not, and you just remind them about what they already have at home, that's sometimes just enough for them to, tip them over. Have you ever considered investing or upgrading a set of your knife set? Okay, just a very important question to ask to know if you should go further or not. Because at this point, you've spent maybe, 3 minutes, 5 minutes with them going through the leather, hitting them with all the power statements, right? And so at that point, you want to ask them, hey, have you ever considered investing or upgrading your knife set? If the answer is no, even after doing all that, then they're probably someone that you shouldn't spend any more time with. Most likely, the answer is going to be yes. And then from there, you say, what's great about our sets is we have different ones to fit each and every customer. Whether they're vegetarian, they entertain, or they only cook for themselves, we have a set for everyone. So would you be looking for a few pieces of Cutco, or are you probably looking for a set? So I'm letting the customer make the decision, but you'll notice within the script, there's certain things that I'm saying or doing that are hinting towards which direction I would encourage them to go, right? And I'm also handling the objection, oh, I don't cook a lot, so I only need, a couple pieces, right? Or it's only me, so I don't need a whole set. Yet you just said earlier, hey, we have sets for just about everyone, even if you only cook for yourselves. So would you be looking for just a few pieces, or would you probably be looking for a set? I'll show you our 3 most popular sets, and you can tell me which fits your style of cooking the best. Okay, and at that point, I'll go through the basic, the family, and the complete set, and then that'll give me direction and where I should go from there. Most of you already use this, obviously. But it's important for the customer to feel like, for them to be receiving that you're serving them, right? You're helping them. You're making sure that you're going to help them make the best decision for themselves, and you're not just going to try to sell them the whole set. And so that's why I ask these questions, to help guide them in the right direction. All right, after I go through the basic, family, and complete set, I'll say, let's see here. Oh, I'm gonna go back to one, but I'll basically say, which set would you get the most value and use out of over the next 20, 30, 40 years? That's something I actually learned from John Israel, like 7 years ago. Still use it, works great. Which set would you get the most value and use out of over the next 20, 30, 40 years? Affirm their decision. That's a great choice. The great part about buying Cutco is that you buy a set once and you're done for life. Okay, paint that picture. Other questions that I ask, just going up a few bullet points here. By the way, what kind of cooking do you do mostly? Simple, very simple question, but really important to ask. I find a lot of people will cut that corner and just assume, and it's not until you're halfway done you realize they're vegetarian, right? Or what kind of dietary restrictions they have, if anything. And the more you learn about what they cook, the more I'll be able to connect certain foods to what kind of knives they use. All right? So that's really important. So they feel like you're personalizing the set for them. Imagine what it would be like to buy a Cutco set once and never have to buy knives again. That's a really good one. Imagine what it would be like to buy a set of Cutco once and never have to buy knives again. Now, after they pick the set, let's say they decide to pick the family set, at this point, you've already planted the seed earlier in the pitch that, they're going to be expensive, right? And that's something I picked up from Curtis, so $95 for a Wusthof knife, okay? So, at this point, normally what I'll say, and this is something I just started implementing, but I'll say, do you remember how much this knife is, holding up the Wusthof knife, right? Do you remember how much this knife was? Normally they'll be like, oh yeah, it was like $100. Exactly, right? You can imagine what a knife of equivalent size would cost if it's American made and guaranteed forever, right? You can imagine what a knife of equivalent size would cost if it's American made and guaranteed forever, right? And I like that versus like what we learned in training way back when, which is double the value, double the price, all that other stuff. Sometimes they just look at you with a blank stare. So instead, it's like, this is a very direct question. Hey, you can imagine what a knife of equivalent size would go for if it's American made and guaranteed forever. Ever since I've been using that, they'll say, oh yeah, like $200. And I'm holding up a trimmer. It's perfect, okay? Exactly, Mrs. Jones, $200. And you can see that the set you're looking at, the family set's a 24-piece set. So you could probably do the math, okay? Right now, price point's around $4,000, okay? Good price positioning. And then from there, you obviously show your Cutco specials, okay? The underground, like the underlying theme in these questions is, and these statements, is to build value and build belief. You want that to outweigh the price. You're also getting them familiar with the price and really making a personal connection with what you're sharing them about Cutco with their own life, their own needs, their own, what they do on a daily basis, okay? I was working a gun show the other day, and, at this is the first time I ever worked a gun show, and what's unique about a gun show is that they come literally to buy guns. Like, that is their mindset. I'm buying guns, nothing else. It's not like, a boat show, they have like a bunch of different vendors, so it's a little different of a atmosphere or environment. But a gun show, it's like, we're here to buy ammo, guns, scopes, whatever. So the one objection that I was getting was like, oh, well, I didn't come here to buy, knives, right? Didn't come here to buy knives. So being able to go through this script, I was like reflecting on it. I'm like, okay, here's where I need to like improve. Here's what I need to do to make sure that that doesn't come up, okay? So some of these things I was like brainstorming within the last weeks, and that have had a huge impact the second day I came and worked at that booth. It's their why to buy Cutco, right? So hopefully you guys got some value. Those are the nuggets that I use. And by the way, the reason why I didn't go too far into the actual close is because a lot of it comes in the pre, right? Setting the stage, right? If you're going to win a basketball game, it's about the amount of practice and work you put in going into that game. It's not the game itself, but what you do before that, that's going to win the basketball game, right? Same thing applies. What you do those first 5 minutes, the first 10, 15 minutes, depending on how long you're with a customer, is going to have the biggest impact at the end, right? You've all heard if you do a good demo, right, there's not much of a close. Same concept, all right? So hopefully you guys got some nuggets. Appreciate your time. Thank you.